Okay, we're doing a Tom Savini double feature here. Two films of his from 1981. Now, we did a couple other movies in 1981, but I didn't think they were worth talking about, honestly. And why am I doing these two as one video? Because I'm not sure I have enough to say about either movie to make a full video. So let's just jump right into The Prowler and The Burning, in that order. So, The Prowler.
It was 1945, the night of the graduation dance. The war overseas had just ended. The terror at home
Roy.
was about to begin.
Roy?
Come on, kid. Don't play hard to get. What about New Year's Eve?
Well, that was different. I couldn't help myself.
The Prowler.
This was directed by Joseph Zito in 1981. Came relatively early in the 80s slasher boom. Year after Friday the 13th kind of popularized the whole thing and showed studios just how profitable these movies could be. And this was trying to cash in on that. Now, the irony of that being that, of course, Joseph Zito, horror fans may remember, directed Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter. Not the final chapter, there were what, 6, 7, 8 more movies after that. But Part 4 is considered to be one of the better, if not the best, of the franchise. Now, I personally like Part 7 more than 4, but whatever. The final chapter is a good one. And Zito, after that, actually did a couple of Chuck Norris action movies in the 80s. Missing in Action, which is considered to be Chuck Norris's breakthrough film, was directed by Joseph Zito. And then he did another one that I believe was called Invasion USA. Did a Dolph Lundgren movie called Red Scorpion. Then he kind of went off to do more television stuff, apparently in the Middle East, I read. I'm not familiar, I don't know. But regardless, Joseph Zito's a legitimately talented director, and he knows how to make a movie. Now, that being said, The Prowler has, say it with me, a weak script. You can say this about a lot of slashers, unfortunately. Slasher films, too often, studios just kind of looked at them and said, well, as long as we have blood, boobs, we have a movie, right? So The Prowler's not a great movie, but it does have phenomenal kills, outstanding gore effects. See, the relationship between practical special makeup effects and the director needs to be tight. They need to work together. If not, great special effects can look like crap and vice versa. It's all just a matter of how the director works with the special effects artist to make the effects look as good as humanly possible. Now, in The Prowler, apparently the days they had special makeup effects, the days were built around the makeup effects. And that's really how you do it, and that's how you get fantastic gore effects like The Prowler has, because The Prowler has amazing gore effects. The Prowler also has a good mood. It has a good score. It has a good-ish cast. I mean, I'm not going to say the cast is great, but they're serviceable. There's no one in the movie that's like nails on a chalkboard or anything. But the problem becomes that the script just isn't very solid. I once told a friend of mine that The Prowler, because this movie actually used to come on TV a lot. And I once told a friend of mine who finally asked me about it, hey, is The Prowler worth watching? I said, The Prowler, you have good gore, but that movie is wandering around in the dark, the film. The Prowler, good God. You could make a drinking game out of the number of times you watch the sheriff's deputy and his girlfriend slowly roll up to a location in their Jeep. As Jeep, the big logo. I guess that had a product placement on it. I don't know that for a fact, but a lot of these 80s movies had really, really blatant product placement. So, we do that a whole bunch of times. And, it's not good. The story's not good. Now, the first 30 minutes of this movie is actually really solid. I like the newsreel opening footage. I'm gonna have to cough. Swallowed funny. But the opening of the movie has some cool newsreel footage from the 1940s about soldiers coming home from World War II. It talks about PTSD. It talks about the phenomenon of the Dear John letter, of women who would dump their husbands or their boyfriends through a letter while they were away at war because they got too lonely, they met someone else, whatever. And I've heard, I've had many members of my family serve in war, in several of the wars: World War II, Vietnam, Korea. Don't think anybody did any of the Iraq stuff though. But Yeah, and this would devastate them because I mean, a lot of these guys they would take those relationships, which were basically just teenage flings in many cases, and they would obsess about them because what else did they have to think about? That was what they had to come home to, and this movie mentions that these guys were coming home to nothing essentially. And this one guy, he got a Dear John letter from a character called Rosemary, who we meet in the beginning in this 40s flashback where they're having a dance, and she goes off to bang her new boyfriend. She ain't gonna live. If you've ever seen a horror movie in your life, you know that the girl who leaves the dance to fuck her boyfriend is not gonna be seeing the end credits, and she does not. So she and her boyfriend get it in a gazebo with a pitchfork that goes through both of them, like in Friday the 13th Part 2. So, and this movie predates Friday. Well, I believe it was released before Friday the 13th Part 2. I think. Maybe not though. Anyway, that kill was already done in an Italian film, I believe, Bay of Blood. So, who cares? It's a good kill though. So aside from that, we flash forward and we get introduced to the core cast, which is basically just a group of college kids having another dance. The sheriff, who's played by a special guest star, essentially, an actor named Farley Granger. Now this movie actually has two names in it. And if you look at the poster, there are four people on the poster, like four people named as stars. And it's the female lead, the final girl, who's fine. She apparently did some soap operas, Days of Our Lives, I think. The deputy, who's a dip, and I hate him. And he's in the movie way too much. He looks like William Fichtner. Anyone know who William Fichtner is? He was in Armageddon as the asshole, like, soldier guy. I guess NASA, really. I don't think he was military. He was in Black Hawk Down. He was in Crash. He was in Prison Break, the TV series, for a while. Now he's on that show Mom. He's in the wheelchair. He's not really in a wheelchair, but the actor is. And he looks a lot like that guy. And then two names, two established names. Because you always try to get name actors in your movies, even if it's a low budget film. But a lot of times you don't want those name actors to be in your movie all that much because then you have to pay them. And Farley Granger is one of them. Now, Farley Granger was in a couple of Alfred Hitchcock movies. He was in Strangers on a Train, Crisscross. And he was in Rope, which I love Rope. I think Rope is actually my second favorite Hitchcock film after Psycho. And he did some other stuff, but those were kind of his biggies. And Lawrence Tierney. Now, most people today will think of Lawrence Tierney as Elaine's dad, the crazy old man in Seinfeld. He was only in one episode because everyone hated working with him. And Reservoir Dogs, the Tarantino's first film, my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie, as Joe Cabot, the mob boss. He's also only in one Tarantino film, and Tarantino likes to reuse actors, and there's a reason for that too. Lawrence Tierney was an alcoholic, and he was also a colossal asshole. He actually got fired from Reservoir Dogs at one point. He got into such a bad argument with Quentin Tarantino that Tarantino told him, "Get off my set, you fat bald fuck." And he was also arrested during the filming of Reservoir Dogs for shooting his gun in his apartment. On Seinfeld, apparently he made everyone so nervous that no one wanted to work with him again, which is why that character was never on the show again. He apparently tried to steal a knife from set. Like, they caught him sticking a knife in his jacket. God knows what you steal a knife for. But yeah, so and this movie is sort of funny because Lawrence Tierney, if I'm not mistaken, he doesn't make a sound in this movie. He plays the major, who turns out to be the dead girl from the beginning's father, who's just this old guy who has a stroke and is always watching stuff go on from his wheelchair in his gigantic house, which is apparently a museum in real life. But I do kind of wonder if Lawrence Tierney was just drunk or something on set, so they just took his dialogue out and just sit there and look creepy, you mean old bastard. And Farley Granger, who's the sheriff in the movie, he probably shot both Lawrence Tierney probably shot his role in a day, and Farley Granger probably shot his role in 2 days. So, yeah, this movie essentially, like I said, the first 30 minutes, you set up the dance, you set up the characters, you set up who the Lawrence Tierney's character is, the major, the sheriff. This is this big town dance, and the sheriff's going out of town. He's leaving his dipshit deputy in charge of things while he goes. And you set up a couple red herrings. You have the creepy guy that works at the store. Okay, which one? There are two creepy guys that work at the store, but the creepier one, the one that's balding and just keeps showing up throughout the movie, he's I just like to think his name is Delbert. I don't think the character had a name, but I think of him as Delbert. So you set up the characters, the archetypes. You have the female lead, the pretty kind of good girl who's got a thing going with the deputy. Then you have the kind of bitchy girl who's flirting with the deputy on purpose. just essentially just to cause problems. She has a boyfriend. Couple other the nerdy guy who keeps trying to get his girlfriend to go off with him and get laid. The lady who's chaperoning the dance. The old guy. None of these characters are very memorable. The script just doesn't do anything with its concept. You have a good setup for a movie, but then nothing happens until something happens. You know what I mean? Like nothing happens until someone dies, and then there's a whole lot more and nothing happening. There are so many scenes of the deputy and his girlfriend, like I said, just driving up to a location and then wandering around in a dark location for about 10 minutes because by God, they're going to get this thing to feature length. This, like I said, this is an easy movie to zone out on. This is an easy movie to lose interest in long portions of the flick. As far as red herrings go, I don't really feel like this is much of a whodunit. I mean, we know that Lawrence Tierney can't be the killer because we see the killer preparing while Lawrence Tierney is just sitting there being flashed by one of the girls. By the way, don't do fake out nudity in movies. Don't do the whole drop the towel and there's nothing. Don't have the whole girl opens her shirt then turns from the camera. Male viewers don't like that. Anyway, this movie actually does that twice. It does it with the girl flashing the major. She turns from the camera to do it, so you don't see anything. And then the pretty blonde, the female lead, she goes to change. Same thing. She like goes to take off, then cut. Then she's fully dressed again. It's like, don't do that. If the actress won't do nudity, just don't set them up for it. Yeah, like I said, the major isn't a red herring because we know it can't be him. Not because he's in a wheelchair, but because we see the killer getting dressed with his green fatigues. The killer dresses like a soldier in full jungle gear, essentially. And we also, I mean, like, weird guy at the shop. The movie kind of wants us to think might be the killer, but he's not. Like, you can tell he's not because he keeps showing up without a mask on, and the killer has a mask on. So why would he take his mask off to scare the blonde and then put it back on to try and kill her? It doesn't make sense. Now, who the killer is, it's a reveal. I mean, it's not especially significant because we have so little time with this person. So it doesn't really work as a whodunit. It's Tom Savini's the star of this movie. Let's face it. This movie has phenomenal gore effects and not much else. I mean, it has good cinematography. It's well shot. It's just there's nothing else to really grab onto here. So of the kills, you have the opening kill with the pitchfork. Then you have hot blonde in the shower who gets it with a pitchfork again, and her boyfriend. And I swear to God, this is one of the most disturbing kills I've ever seen. And given that Tom Savini is basing his gore effects on things he saw during the Vietnam War, you know, he was a combat photographer, meaning he saw all manner of human mutilation during the Vietnam War. This kid, the blonde's boyfriend, gets stabbed in the top of his head, so it goes out his throat, and then his eyes roll back, and his cheeks suck in as they're pulling the knife out. And it's just a disturbing image, man. It's brutal. Like, the violence in this movie is brutal. It is brutal. Now, the cut I watched claimed to be the R-rated cut, but I have a suspicion it's the unrated cut because it feels like a lot of this wouldn't have gotten past the MPAA. So if you do watch it, definitely watch the unrated cut. But if there's not an unrated cut, I would be surprised. But regardless, see the most complete version of the film you can. So you get the couple, and they get dumped in the shower, and they leave the shower on. So people keep walking past this shower, and it's just dead naked girl and guy strung up from the bathtub. And I guess they think these people are just fucking in the shower all night, like they just drop some Molly and they're just 8 hours later. It's kind of hilarious. No one finds the bodies until the very end of the film. These are the first people to get killed in present day, what the movie's present day, 1981. So yeah, you get some then a whole lot of wandering around in the dark. Lawrence Tierney gets to grab the girl. Pointless scene. Then bitchy girl. So it was kind of funny when the bitchy girl Lisa. So she gets the deputy to dance with her at the dance. Like he's going over to talk to the blonde chick, the main character, and she like pulls him over and dances with him and like pretty aggressively dances with him, like rubbing up against him and stuff. And the deputy then goes over to his girl and is like, "Oh, why are you mad? I was only dancing with her first, and she was all over me, and you were right there, and I didn't pull." Oh yeah, you have every right to be mad, right? Like, you're a moron, dude. And you're the adult. You're a cop. She's still in school. You're a moron. I didn't like the deputy at all. This guy's an idiot. I really wish he had died. He doesn't die, though. Anyway, the female lead is good in it. I actually, like I said, I don't have any problem with any of the acting, really. I mean, the deputy's kind of a doof, but aside from that, I don't have any problem with the acting. I wish we'd spent more time with the Farley Granger character, the sheriff. But, yeah, after that, Lisa storms out of the dance and leaves her drunken boyfriend to get arrested for public intoxication. And Lisa goes off to the pool to go swimming in a very skimpy see-through bathing suit and gets kicked the hell in the face with a combat boot. And let me just say, that would have hurt like a bastard. And then the guy the killer jumps in the water and cuts her throat. And I swear to God, this is the best throat slit I've ever seen. If there's a better throat slit in films, hell, let me know, man. Because he's cutting into her throat. It's not just cut blood like we're not used to. He cuts into her throat, and it looks for all the world like it's digging in. I mean, it had to have been one of those knives that was cut out, but even that would have been really hard. Like, it is perfectly shot. It is seamless. I guess I'm blown away because this is pre-CGI, so it's still, in my opinion, the best throat slit I've ever seen. But then we have a setup for a couple kills with these two nerdy kids that goes nowhere. We have a fake-out scare at the cemetery because we needed to work in another scene of the deputy and his girlfriend wandering around a location in the dark until they finally find something, a dug-up grave. And at this point, they're like, oh shit, I guess we better call the sheriff back. And that's kind of a funny sequence because the morbidly obese guy that is at the retreat, the sheriff's gone off to some fishing retreat, he won't go check on the sheriff. He's like, well, it's kind of late, and all right, I'll go check on her. And literally all he does, he sits the phone down and makes it sound like he walks away, then slams something wood against his table to make it sound like he closed the door, sits there, eats his, I believe he was eating jerky, then he makes the wood sound again to make it sound like his fat ass won't get out of that chair for nothing. The building could have been on fire, and he was going to be like, well, I sure hope the fire officers get here before I burn to a crisp. Like, he was not getting out of that chair. So the deputy has to kind of keep going, and of course the deputy and his girl have a couple, because why is he bringing his girlfriend along on all of this? That's official police procedure. Hey, honey, come out, check out the crime scene with me. No, and she gets really mad at him every time he tries to go, like, maybe you should just stay here because I'm the cop and you're a student and there's really no reason in the world for you to, whatever. Chaperone lady gets it, a pretty decent stab wound. That's actually the least exceptional kill of the movie. It's okay, it's just not particularly memorable. And, yeah, then we get some more wandering around in the dark. Yay. And then we get the killer's reveal. So, spoilers if you don't want to know who the killer in the Prowler is. It doesn't matter, but fine. 3, 2, 1. It was the sheriff. And like I said, I wish we'd had more time with the sheriff, because he doesn't have any personality. He doesn't have anything. There's nothing. You could never have guessed that he was the killer unless you were just sitting there thinking, okay, they got to have Farley Granger do something more than this, because the guy's kind of famous. I would say Farley Granger is kind of like at a Michael Madsen level. Like he had hits, but they were decades ago, but they were kind of legendary, and he still would pop up and stuff. So Michael Madsen, Mr. Blonde from Reservoir Dogs, Bud, I believe was his name, in Kill Bill. He pops up in Tarantino movies. I would say that having Farley Granger in this movie was the equivalent of having Michael Madsen in the movie for The Prowler. So yeah, we get that, and we get the reveal. Then the doofus that works at the shop, who's been popping up every so often, finally and he shoots the sheriff, and he has this long moment because he saved the blonde girl's life. He shoots the sheriff right when he's about to kill the blonde girl, and then they have this long look where she's like, oh, and neither one says anything, but they're just looking at each other all smiling. And I swear, I wish he had just gone, I helped. Then he gets shot. Then the sheriff gets shot. He gets his head blown the hell off. And it's a really good head explosion. It's gnarly, man. You see like his lower jaw fly off. It's actually maybe a little bit better than the legendary head explosion that's in Maniac, which was also Tom Savini. Anyway, then she goes back to her room, and apparently no one bothered to check anything yet because the dead couple is still in the shower. And she finally checks on it. And she hallucinates that the guy tries to grab her, but he didn't. And that is confirmed that was supposed to be a dream sequence because it was inspired by the final scene of Carrie, where Amy Irving's character, Sue Snell, imagines that Carrie White, after she's dead, grabs her arm. So it's definitely a dream sequence. He definitely didn't do that. He definitely wasn't still alive or anything. So then the movie just ends. Okay, so let's do The Burning.
This summer, if you're planning to go camping, don't. If you're looking forward to midnight swims, don't.
Okay, see, The Burning is it's very different tonally than The Prowler. The Prowler is, I actually like the mood of The Prowler. I like the kind of grim, serious quality that The Prowler has. Not so much with The Burning. The Burning is more camp. And I generally prefer a more serious horror film, so I do prefer The Prowler to The Burning. That's why I did it first. But they're both in 1981, and The Burning is somewhat notorious for a couple of reasons. A few reasons. So first and foremost, it's the movie that Tom Savini passed on Friday the 13th Part 2 to do. He did The Burning instead. And I honestly can't imagine why. I can't find any official reasoning for it. I guess if I ever meet Tom Savini again at a convention, I have met him once. He signed my From Dusk Till Dawn poster, which was a gift from my brother, because my brother thinks Sex Machine, from his character in From Dusk Till Dawn, is the coolest character in any movie ever. So I met Tom Savini. He seemed like a nice guy. If I ever meet him at another convention, I will ask him, why the hell did you pass on Friday the 13th Part 2 to do The Burning? All I can think is he was trying to get in on the ground floor of another franchise, but The Burning wasn't a franchise film. It never yielded anything. So anyway, that's the one big thing. And then the other big thing is that Harvey Weinstein, everyone's favorite film producer. No, everyone hates this guy. He's the dude who was sexually harassing women left and right and finally got busted for it about 5 years ago during the Me Too movement. He had story credits and he produced this. And his brother, Bob, who you never really hear all that much about, really, but his brother, Bob, wrote the screenplay with some other guy. So, yeah, and this is one of only 2 writing credits the Weinstein brothers have. The other one being Breakfast Club knockoff, came out a few years later, and the title's escaping me. It was a generic title. It was a Breakfast Club knockoff. That's all it was. It was kids having fun in high school trying to figure out how to be grown-ups. Anyway, so The Burning is based around the Cropsey campfire legend, and it was 2 titles. They considered The Cropsey Maniac and Tales Around a Campfire before they finally just went with The Burning. I like The Burning. The Burning is a good title. And yeah, The Burning is features the film dead of Jason Alexander, also from Seinfeld, weirdly. George in Seinfeld. Now, he has hair, kind of. He has hair, but it's obviously very thin. And that leads me into one immediate criticism of this movie, is that while most of the girls at this movie set at a summer camp are plausible, they could be 14, 15, 16. The guys who have speaking roles, like the prominent speaking role males that are at this summer camp, all look like they're in their 20s, comfortably. Jason Alexander looks like he's in his 20s. Phaser, the jock meathead guy, I mean, the guy's got arms like cannons. Like, I know there are some guys who get really super jacked while they're still in high school, but not a lot. This guy is huge. He looks too old. The pervy guy, which pervy guy? Okay, the pervy guy that follows the girl to the lake, like, his hairline is receded to here, for God's sake. He looks like he's about 28. So the lead kid, the closest thing this movie has to a lead kid, The Burning doesn't really have a lead. Like the kid who's peeping on the girl in the shower at the beginning, he kind of looks age appropriate, so I'll give him that. But yeah, the cast. Okay, the Prowler's cast is forgettable. The Burning's cast I actively dislike. And I honestly prefer forgettable to being annoyed. And I'm not one of these people who's easily annoyed, like, oh my god, they're so irritating in the Friday the 13th remake. I can't stand it. Like, nah, I mean, I can tolerate characters that are a little obnoxious, but especially if there's something funny or endearing, but the characters in The Burning are just, I don't like them. Jason Alexander seems like a smug prick. The meathead guy, like, is kind of likable, just in that he seems too stupid. The peeping Tom kid is annoying. I don't like him. I guess we're supposed to feel sorry for him. He's like, I don't have any friends. Well, maybe you'd have friends if you weren't peeking at girls in the shower, you dick. The female characters are all pretty damn interchangeable. They all have one personality of generically playful. That's about it. And then the 2 counselors, I hated both of them. I wanted them both to die so bad. The main counselor is a guy named Todd, and then the female counselor, I don't remember her name, but Todd's an asshole, and I don't like him at all. He he grabs the Flazer, whatever his name was, because he's yelling at the kid who was peeping at the girl in the shower because he has a crush on the girl that he was peeping on. And he's like grabbing the kid, he like grabs him by the shirt and shoves him. It's like, dude, I mean, they're probably the same age in real life, but in theory, you're supposed to be an adult and he's supposed to be a kid. Get your hands off of him, especially considering he was completely reasonable in being mad. And the reveal, it's so unimportant, but if you don't want to hear the ending of The Burning, watch The Burning. I mean, it's another one you watch really just for the kills. But the reveal that Todd was one of the kids in the cold open, where we see how Cropsey was burnt up in a prank gone wrong. I mean, the Burning's a prank gone wrong movie. It's another terror train. It's like some kids 20 years, I believe it's actually only 10 years earlier, were mad at this guy who worked at the summer camp, so they were going to scare him with I think a flaming bag of dog shit or something. But somehow they ended up burning it. He catches on fire and is mangled beyond recognition. At the hospital, they're making fun of him like, this guy looks like an extra crispy hamburger or something. And yeah, he does look jacked up when we finally see his face. It's not a very good effect, and Tom Savini even said he wasn't happy with it, but it looks like his face melted almost over itself. It's nothing like Freddy Krueger. It's not like raw flesh. It's more like melted. You know, it's a cool design in theory. It's just not executed especially well, and none of the makeup effects are in this movie. I would actually say this is one of Tom Savini's worst looking movies, and I think that's because it didn't have a good director. This guy is not a feature film director. I actually think this was the only feature he ever did. He was a music guy. He did music videos, music documentaries. So it's not. I think this movie had a good cinematographer, but a poor director. It had someone who knew how to operate the cameras, but it didn't have someone giving any kind of guidance on how to operate the camera, like where to place things. There's the notorious scene on the raft where they use the same shot over and over again of the raised hedge clippers. It's the exact same shot. They didn't get multiple shots of it, so they just kept using the same shot. It's really lazy. It's really obvious. And there's this stupid part that I always laugh at the end of the movie where they're doing the old Friday the 13th find all the bodies thing. And there's the one girl who got killed in the lake while she was skinny dipping. Apparently that actress wasn't on set to film her dead body reveal. So rather than just not show her because there are other victims, or just ask a woman on set with brown hair similar to hers, just put on this blue thing that she was wearing when she died and turn away from the camera so they can't see your face, and we'll just say it's you. No, they use a still frame, and just superimpose it into the movie. It's the worst, most obvious thing ever. It's literally her doing this during her death scene. So it's a very obvious still frame of this. And they're like, oh my God, we found her dead body. Oh my God, we found this production still. It's stupid as hell. Because The Burning's not a well-made movie. And again, the kills in the movie are good in theory, but none of them are good looking. Even the raft scene, which is by far the best part of this entire movie, it's not. Like when the kid gets his fingers cut off by the garden shears, it's cool in theory, and it makes you go, oh God, that would hurt like hell. But then it shows his hand, and it's a rubber hand. It's not well photographed. When creepy guy with the receding hairline gets stabbed through the neck, it's not photographed well, because his neck is way too long because it's a rubber neck, and no one caught that. Like the director didn't say, oh, okay, we're gonna need to frame this a little bit differently because that looks really fake. He just said, print, got it. It's just lazy. It's not well done. Like I said, Cropsey's makeup effects. You probably could have done something to make his face look better, up to and including not lighting it directly the way they did. But they didn't. This is in between not liking the characters. Oh, I didn't even talk about the female counselor. So I don't like Todd because Todd's a little prick. He's not good with the kids. But I don't like the female counselor because she's one of those women who would use the word masculinity as an insult. She clearly doesn't like men. So I don't like either of the counselors. I don't like the creeper kid. And these are the three heroes of this movie. They're the three leads. They're the three that survived. I mean, Jason Alexander survives, so that's just because he's not involved in anything after the middle of the movie. He just awkwardly falls out of the film. But yeah, I don't much care for The Burning, honestly. The Prowler, I like a little bit more. I wouldn't call either of these great movies, but The Burning, a bit more of a camp film. If you're in the mood to just watch something silly, you can watch The Burning. If you want to watch something violent, you can watch The Prowler. I don't consider either movie great, but they're both worth watching for the Tom Savini gore effects and just kind of like that 80s feel, just on very opposite ends of the spectrum. With The Prowler being a very dark and grim movie, and The Burning being a more over-the-top and silly movie. But yeah, that's about all I got. Tom Savini double feature. Done.